Hey, this is Mike. Welcome to the Wandering Minds podcast.
This is Mickey, and today we have Gene.
Can you pull that closer to you?
Oh, yeah.
Welcome, Gene. Gene, my brother-in-law, proud to say. So I had your wife, my sister, on last night, and her story about you ended with when you met. She ended with her tripping over a rock and falling on her face. So continue on. She wanted you to finish that story.
We have two versions of it.
Yeah.
But the true version is probably the one she gave you. I was a police officer, and I got a call to dogs at large. There were two large pit bulls running around in the city, and I needed to go there and check on the dogs because they were supposedly being aggressive towards people. Mm-hmm. And I arrived at the house, and sure enough, there's two pit bulls out, a brown one and a black one. And the black one seemed to be the most aggressive of the two, where somebody would walk down the street, and if they had another dog, he would kind of run up to them. And I thought that he looked a little aggressive because it looked like he was snarling. Well, he was actually half pit bull, half boxer. So he had that boxer underbite. Okay. And it looked like he wasn't snarling. He just had an underbite. He was
just deformed.
Yeah. And so I got out of the car and went up there. And the brown dog was at the gate, and he went back inside. The black dog kind of stayed out of the gate a little bit. And then I looked, and I could see where some boards were busted. So they were probably secured in the backyard at one point in time, but broke some boards and got out. So then I said, all right, I had dispatch. I gave them the address. Yes, can you give me any contact information that you have here? And so they gave me a name and a phone number, and I called in, and ended up being now my stepson. So I called him up and asked, do you have a couple of dogs?
Was it Andre?
It was Andre,
okay, Andre, yeah.
And so Andre said, yeah, we have dogs, but I'm here at school. I think he was a sophomore.
Okay.
And so he's like, I'm getting ready to take a test. I can't come and get him, but I'll call my mom. So I said, okay, can you call her and then have her call me? So I waited about a half hour. No call, no mom. Mm-hmm. So then I was able to get her phone number from dispatch, and I called her up and I said, hey, I'm here at your house. I have these dogs here. I thought your son was going to come here. And she said, oh, no, well, he called me. He's taking the test, but, I'm going to come, but I couldn't come right away. Well, when can you come? Well, I might be there in a half hour. And so I was pissed. I was not happy. Look, I've already been here 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Okay, you need to come here right now and get these dogs because I can't stay here all day and I have to get back to work. So if you're not here in 15 minutes, I'm calling animal control. They're going to come and pick up the dogs. They're going to fine you like $1,000. Mm-hmm. And because they're pit bulls, who knows what they're going to. And so then she said, okay, I'll be there. And she literally, about 15 minutes later, because she said, I'm about 25 minutes away. No, you have 15 minutes to get here. And so about 15 minutes later, I could literally hear this car just engine gunning down the street. And I looked down, and she has this BMW, and I could see a BMW X5 just flying down the street, and literally pulls right into the driveway. And she gets out of the car, and she says, I'm sorry. Boom, and she trips over a rock and falls flat on her neck.
God, I wish your recorder was recording that shit.
And so I was like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. And I could look, and her knees were all scuffed up, and her elbows bleeding. And she goes, let me get him in the house. And so I said, okay, she said, I'll put him back in the backyard. No, you can't put him in the backyard because then they're going to be right back outside. And so she finally said, well, I'll put them in the house. Just hang on for 1 second. So she takes him in the house, and she puts him away in there and says, you want to come in for a second? Okay. So I came in. And then when I walked in, I saw her son's picture. I saw Andre's picture on the wall, and he had a football uniform on. And I was like, hey, he plays football for Coronado? Yeah, he plays. I said, no, my son plays football. And so we started talking about football and sports, and our kids were about the same ages at that time. And it was pretty much an instant connection. At that point in time, we realized, our personalities kind of matched. We had a lot in common. And I always tease her because she literally, obviously I'd had her phone number because I called her. And I was getting ready to leave, and she's like, hey, can I give you my phone number? And literally she was almost wrapped around my leg. I was all walking. And so sure, I'll give. And then she was just scrambling. Oh my God, here, give me a call sometime. And we end up talking later and went out on a date, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, your story's aligned pretty well. She, she said had some choice words for you, but I think you confirmed her idea of that.
I wasn't happy because by the time she got there, it was an hour.
Right. Ooh.
And so I'd been waiting there.
Right. In Arizona.
In Arizona, right. Yes. And it was hot, and it was, it was interesting. The kind of the follow-up to the story. So we went on our first date. I enjoyed the date. We went out pretty low key. We went out. She was working for a medical practice at the time, and they had some employee appreciation function. So we went out, met up with the group. Okay, had a good night. Hey, fine, had a great time. See you later. Then approximately 2 days later, I told her, hey, I'll give you a call later. 2 days later, I'm at the gym working out. Wow. Oh, I feel kind of funny. Wow. Am I having a heart attack? Nah, I'm not. No, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do my cardio, because I normally start with cardio because I know I'm going to be too tired at the end to do it. So I try to power through my treadmill, 45 minutes. Can't do it. I can only do about 5 minutes before I get so lightheaded and kind of disoriented. So I keep stopping. All right, let me try to do the bike. So I power through 45 minutes on the bike.
Oh my God.
And then it was going to do a leg routine. So I power through my leg routine of about an hour and 20 minutes. And by the time I'm done, I'm so lightheaded, I can barely see. And I have this weird sensation, weird feeling, as I call it. It's just hard to explain. So maybe I drink a soda. It almost felt like I had to, if I burp, if I belch, maybe
you would let it
I'll
out.
be okay. Yeah. No, it didn't work. So I go outside. I sit up at the front desk, and I sit there for about an hour because I didn't feel comfortable driving. I just didn't feel right. I don't want to put anybody's life at risk. I'm not going to drive. I sit there about an hour. Okay, all right, I feel better. And so then I walk outside to my car, but it's about 75 feet away from the front door. By the time I get to the front door, of my car, same lightheaded. No, it just doesn't feel right. So I sit in my car for like an hour.
Wow.
Okay, maybe I'll be okay. All right. And then finally, after about an hour and 10 minutes, I think, I'm going to go to the hospital. It's 5 minutes away. I'll drive myself there. Drove myself to the hospital. I get there, sit in the car for about a half hour, thinking, the guy thing. Come on, this is ridiculous. You're going to get in there and they're going to take a bunch of tests, tell you they don't see anything, and then no big deal.
Yeah.
So I sit in the car, half hour. No, something's going on. Carry your behind in there. So I get up, walk to the front door. Nah, I'm fine. Go back and get in my car, sit down for another half hour. Finally, I go into the hospital in the emergency room, and I walk in. Boom. There's probably 50 people, 60, 70 people in there.
Wow.
It's jam-packed.
Yeah.
Oh, crap. Okay, I walk up to the front desk, and the charge nurse is there, and I look at her, and she goes, hey, how you doing? What's going on? I don't know. I kind of got this weird feeling in my chest, almost like I have indigestion. And I'm thinking I'm going to be there forever. 30 seconds later, the door's open. Boom. Come on in.
Wow.
Literally, if you go in the hospital and say, I'm having some issues up here and it's just kind of weird, it's sensation or whatever. They take me back, hook me up, EKG, take some blood work, just take some blood, do blood work. I'm back there. And then the first thing they say is, everything looks fine.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I was like, oh, no. Really? Yeah, okay. So they take me back in one of the ER bays back there. Yeah. And then doctor comes in, my cardiologist, he comes in, introduces himself, says, hey, I looked at your EKGs, everything looks fine. Your blood work, perfect. No cholesterol issues, no nothing.
Yeah.
Enzyme levels, all fantastic. So he kind of asked me what had been going on, and I explained to him, the previous 4 or 5 hours, this is what's been going on. And he says, you ever had any gallbladder issues? No. Any cardiac issues? No. He goes, what about your family? Well, what about them? What's your family history like? Well, if you discount the fact that my dad died of a stroke at 44, my mother died of heart failure at 58. Ooh. I had a brother who was undergoing treatment for prostate cancer at 54. And then at some point in time during his treatment, he was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And approximately 6 months later, he bent over to tie his shoes, suffered a massive heart attack and died. And hypertension runs in my family. And if you discount all that, I'm fine. So then he said, why don't you stay for the night? It can't do any harm.
Yeah.
Why don't you just stay? And then probably at about 6 a.m., he walked into my room and he had 2 or 3 other people with him. And I could see there was a gurney out in the hallway. Oh, and he's like, how you feeling? Yeah, not much change. And he said, we had you on nitro all night long, a little nitro drip. And I go, yeah. And he said, you had a heart attack. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, you have. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you have been probably since yesterday. We need to get you into the cath lab to do a catheterization and find out what's going on in your heart. I was like, wait, time out. Because you said I was okay. Now you're telling me I had a heart attack. And he said, basically, your enzyme levels spiked off the chart.
Overnight while you were in the hospital.
Overnight at some point in time, because they had me hooked up to monitors all night. And then at some point in time, boom, enzyme levels off the chart. Yeah. It's definitely cardiac related.
So that was all a precursor to you having a heart attack.
Yes.
Essentially,
Yes. And so finally, boom, I'm having one. I go in. Yes. Wow. And it's a matter of family genetics.
Oh, yeah.
Because with all of that family history, never mind the fact that I ate pretty clean and I exercise, and I've never smoked a cigarette in my life, never had a sip of alcohol in my life. Everything finally caught up with me. So luckily I was living pretty clean.
You're an exceptionally healthy person.
So it ends up, 90% blockage in my right coronary artery. 90%.
What?
Yeah.
Shit.
The good news.
And you're that healthy.
The good news is it was as far away from my heart as you could get, way down on the tip. So I have a stent put in. So I'm in the hospital. And then, I'm trying to recover. And then I get a phone call.
Why haven't I heard
you said you were going to call me back.
Oh, shit.
Well,
are you going to buy that I had a heart
attack? Right.
I'm like, I'm right here in the hospital. I had a heart attack. I take a picture. See these tubes?
Oh, man.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. To this day, you blame her.
Yes, that's what I said. I was perfectly healthy until I met you.
That's good. So I want to switch gears, though.
Okay.
Because I want to go back. I want people to know who you are from the ground up, because you have one of those stories that I think most people watch movies about, right? From the poverty level to your getting shot. How many times did you get shot?
6 times.
6 times in law enforcement.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I start wherever you want, but, you know, give us a summary of your upbringing and your background. You told us, the health issues as far as family, but I mean, the just, how your life was, so that people can understand that their life could be worse.
And that's something my mother always said, no matter how bad you think you have it, just look around. Somebody else has always got it worse. They're always worse off. And we grew up, my mother was the old woman who lived in a shoe. Really, she had so many kids. My dad died when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And like I said, he died at 44 years old, stroke, and that left my mother and a ton of babies. And
ton being how many?
12.
Mickey's halfway there, pretty close.
Yeah, but I always appreciated my mother because her answer to everything was hard work.
Yeah,
if you want to succeed in life. She never said, work as hard. And as a matter of fact, we would say, hey, I worked as hard as that guy did.
Yeah.
And she would say,
work harder.
No, if you fucking work hard, but
no,
she would always say, if you fucking work as hard as that guy, then it's a hard choice, right? If you have 2 employees who work the same, I work as hard as this guy, I work as hard as that guy, that person, then it's a hard choice, right? Because I can pick him, I can pick him. Mm-hmm. If you work harder than him, it's an easy choice for that employer because he's going to know or she's going to know that you're the hardest working person that they have.
Yeah.
So you have to do something to separate yourself. And she was all about work ethic and pride in your work and working hard. That was the answer to everything. And so that's the way that we were raised. Now, what's interesting about me, my family is we grew up on the streets of D.C. So at that time, highest violent crime rate, highest drug rate, extreme poverty. D.C. was a city of about 800, 900,000 people. The dropout rate, the attrition rate in D.C. was 82%. Wow. So only 18 out of every 100 kids that entered kindergarten would go on to graduate from high school.
Wow.
Everybody dropped out.
Yeah.
And because none of the politicians lived in D.C., they all lived in the suburbs.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yes, and their kids attended private schools. Mm-hmm. So none of them had a vested interest in the city itself. And you also, at that time, like Marion Barry, who's a notorious mayor, he was involved in, not in politics at that time, but he was involved in business in the city. And so a lot of youngsters like myself, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, he gave us the first job.
Yeah.
And so that's how, once we became of voting age, 18, 19, 20, we remembered that and voted Marion Barry, even though he had crack cocaine issues and delved in soliciting prostitutes.
Yeah.
Still, he was Marion Barry. He was homeboy. He was from the neighborhood. So everybody just threw that aside.
That's super smart on his end.
It was. He was a smart businessman until he got too deeply involved in it. But so we grew up. I'm probably a typical family from my neighborhood because you have some that had, some successes and some a lot of failures. I have numerous relatives that are in prison for murder and various violent crimes and have heroin and meth and every other drug issue there are. And then in my family, there are 3 of us in law enforcement.
Oh, wow.
And so even though I would see some of my relatives, some of my brothers, and they would come home with stories and talk about the crimes and things they committed, I always knew it was wrong. And I wanted to be different. I didn't want to put my mother through the same things that they put her through.
Where were you on the scale of eldest to youngest?
I was number 11.
Okay.
So, and my mother, she would give us numbers, right? So she, you basically didn't even have a name because it'd be like 3, 11, 9, get. So that was, it was a challenging time, but a fun time. And I always like to tell the story. Like I went to junior college when I graduated, and I was in Washington, D.C. I didn't even get to choose where I went to school at. I had some offers. I played sports. I played basketball primarily in my junior and senior year of high school, and had some offers from some local schools and some other places nearby. My mother decided that I needed some seasoning, so she sent me from Washington, D.C. to Aberdeen, Washington.
Wow.
3,000 miles. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, I didn't even have a choice because she said, you're going there. You need to do some seasoning. So I went 3,000 miles away, which ended up being the best thing for me.
Okay.
Really. I grew up, and it allowed me to see how other people live.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea. Wow, you mean there are actually other people that aren't on welfare, that aren't on food stamps, that aren't walking down to the corner market asking the meat cutter back there, excuse me, you have any bones for my dogs? My mom sent me down here to ask if you had any bones for my dogs. And he would say, yeah, I left a little extra meat on there for the dogs.
Yeah.
And literally they go back and cut up, femurs from cows, various pig parts, and we throw them in a big clear plastic bag. And I'd have to walk like 6 blocks home with that, and everybody would make fun of you, right? Even though I was happy, hey, at least we're going to have some meat or some stew.
Yeah.
There's many times with that many kids, we didn't have meat. We didn't celebrate Christmas because we didn't have money for gifts.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving was whatever you could throw together, and it was challenging times, but it ended up being probably the best thing for us.
Yeah.
And for me, because of the struggle, and it built instant competition into me. I already had competition with my older siblings, but it made me more competitive, and it gave me some drive to want to do better.
Yeah,
to want better, knowing one day I'm going to be married, I'm going to have children, and I want them to live a better life, a more comfortable life, and struggle less than I did.
Deal with. So when did you get into law enforcement? I know you played sports, you broke your So, but when did law enforcement enter your mind? Washington, right?
And I was first a police officer in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
And honestly, I'd never thought about law enforcement.
Okay.
All of my experience with law enforcement was on the other side of it.
Yeah, it was bad.
They would serve search warrants at my house, come in, and those were the days where they would literally come in with like hammers and tear the wall apart and cut the mattress apart.
Yeah.
And they were searching for, something. You're searching for drugs or either stolen property.
Or weapons.
Yes, or whatever it is, but specific items that are on that warrant list that the judge signed. And literally, they would come in, tear the place apart, turn mattresses over, cut into mattresses, holes in the walls, dump everything out in cupboards, pantries, and then they just lay the paper down, your copy of the search warrant down, and say, okay, have a nice day.
Wow.
And if one of my brothers were there and they had an arrest warrant for them, boom, they take them. But most of the time, they would just do that and just go ahead and leave. And maybe my mom would hear about it later, or one of my brothers would. So I had always had negative experiences. The lucky thing for me is one of my sisters, it's the younger of my 2 sisters, she had become a police officer. She was in right around 1987. And I went on a ride along with her. I was back in DC at the time. I went on a ride along. It was like the greatest ride along ever. Cool. There was car chases. There was officers involved in fighting. There was a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And I'd always really idolized my sister because she was just a grinder and a worker and a fantastic person.
Yeah.
And so I went on that ride along and I was like, wow, this is great. This is incredible. And at that time I was still living in DC, and I was a fitness instructor at the YMCA.
Nice.
And I went back to work at the YMCA and I was like, wow, I went on a ride along. My sister had a great time. And I'll never forget 2 of my clients at that time. One was a lieutenant And then his wife was a detective with the Seattle Police Department. And they started talking to me about becoming a police officer. Why are you wasting your talents here? You could do so much more. You make a great police officer. And I wasn't sold, even though I had a great ride along. And so they just worked on me for probably a month or so, and then said, wow, hey, I just want you to go and talk to this guy. He's a sergeant in our personnel unit. Just let him tell you about it. And so I said, all right, fine. I went down and talked to him. And he said, hey, why are you here? God, couldn't hurt to fill out an application. It's like, just fill it out, and if you change your mind later, okay, boom. And I filled out the application. The next day I get a call. Hey, we have a ride along scheduled for you. Nice. It's like, ride along? Wait a minute. Yeah, just come and check it out. And then honestly, 8 days later, I had completed all of the testing. Wow. Went into the academy. So it's kind of a dream scenario, because that's unheard of. It takes you 6 months to a year. Wow. And I did it really in 8 days, because I think they saw something in me. And I became, really good friends with that couple. And it worked out.
When did you go? You went into SWAT, right? You were in a gang task force and SWAT at one time, right?
I was in a little bit of everything. Gangs, SWAT, undercover narcotics, street crimes, bicycle patrol, foot beat. I mean,
what were you doing when you got shot?
I was.
Tell us that story.
Well, getting shot. I was in patrol at the time. Okay. I was what's called a field training officer. So I was training new cops. When you go into the academy, and you go in the academy for 3 months, and then you're out on the street, and then you have to go through various phases of training. Mm-hmm. And at that time with Seattle Police, it was 4 different phases. So I was a training officer, and you have recruits in various phases of training, and you have to approve them to go on to the next level. And so I was a training officer, and my normal shift was noon until 8 p.m. And so at that time in Seattle, and this was in 1994.
So it was rough then.
Yeah, it was rough. Pretty rough. Busy time. Yeah. It was. Seattle isn't necessarily the most police officer friendly city. Let's say. So this time I decide I have there's a serial bank robber that's been robbing numerous banks in the Seattle area, and he had the same MO, the same mode of operation. He would come into the bank, he would grab one of the bank employees, he would literally force the gun into their mouths and tell them, hey, I want all the cash. And he would always grab a female, and then he would say at the end, do not call the police, because I know you drive that green Honda out there. So he would do a little bit of scouting. Yeah. And so he would say, I want you to give me 10 minutes before you hit the alarm or you call the police. And if you hopped in your car and drove 10 minutes, how far away could you be? And so literally people were so afraid he'd have 15 or 20 minutes. And so some friends of mine owned several branches of a bank. And so what I was doing for them, because they had been victimized and 3 of their banks had been robbed. Wow. So I was coordinating security for them. I was finding officers to work, just 4-hour shifts. Yeah. And it made the banks feel a little more secure. The employees felt a little more safe. I personally said I wasn't going to do it, because I recall that the last time we had an officer that was shot in the line of duty, he was actually working off duty at a bank, and he was shot and killed. And I said, not going to do it. Yeah. But I'll coordinate. I'll find people to work for you. And then one day, my friend, who was the president of one of the banks, she said, I would like to have you come and work at the bank. She said, no offense to the other officers, I'd just like to have you do it. I've known you for a while, feel more comfortable with you. And she said, you can work any days of the week you want, however many. If you want to work 5 days a week, you work. If you want to work 4 hours a day, you can work it. If you want to work 8 hours a day, if you want to work plain clothes, you can work. If you want to work uniform, all right. So it was really an offer I can't refuse. Also, we're going to pay you $50 an hour.
Yeah, nice.
Okay. So I decided, all right, I'm going to do it.
So this was in addition to also acting as a police officer?
Yes.
Okay,
It was
so
a
this
way
was
to earn
extra
money.
Okay.
Yeah. So it
And
was
help friend out.
So, yes. And so what I decided that this particular day, I was going to come into the bank. I was going to work from 9 until 1. And then I was going to go in and do my regular job. So I'd taken a half a day off of comp from my regular job. And then I was just going to work the bank. The bank opens at 9 a.m. No problem there. At 9:50 a.m., as I'm seated here at my desk, and there are two doors. There's a door over here in the bank, and there's a door there. The door to the right actually has about 5 or 6 stairs that lead up to the street level. The door to the left leads out into the parking lot level. So I'm sitting there at 9:50. This door to the left opens, and a person comes in, and they're bent over, and they're wearing a red sort of Gore-Tex coat, almost a parka, and a pair of blue jeans, which is what the bank robber wore every time that he robbed a bank. Which, by the way, he'd robbed 30 banks in 3 months. Ooh, in various states.
Busy.
Washington, Oregon, Idaho, California.
Wow.
And so he walks in, and he's trying to get the hood over his head. And I thought, you have to understand cops. Cops have the weirdest sense of humor. And a bunch of the guys that I was coordinating and having them work at the banks, they knew that I didn't want to work at the bank. So I thought it was just one of my buddies coming in joking. Yeah. He's joking. And then all of a sudden, I see the person get the hood over. And then he raises up, and I can see, he's got a Glock. He's got a 9mm. And then I knew, okay, it's not a joke.
It's on.
At that time, the assistant manager, she was at my desk talking to me. She's standing right beside me. And so as he pivots around, he didn't even see me initially. He said, "This is a bank robbery. Everybody get your hands up." There are 3 tellers and 2 customers over there. And the assistant manager's 6 inches away from me. So as he pivots around and he swings his gun around, at the same time I'm trying to get her to move over, I stand up and we are looking barrel to barrel. And he's in shock because he sees me and goes, "Oh shit." Yeah. Because he had robbed that bank before. Yeah. And there was never an officer there. He didn't even scout it, didn't do any reconnaissance. He just came in to rob it again. And boom, all of a sudden I'm sitting there. And so we're looking at each other, barrel to barrel. And the way it ends up working out, I tell him, "Look, you're not going to shoot anybody. I'm not going to shoot anybody." And I just tell him, "Go ahead and leave, back out." And he starts to back out. He ends up running like he's going to run upstairs. And I'm 20 feet away from him. And then he fakes and he runs back to the right. And he runs past this little wall and then past the window where these curtains are closed. So he's in a full sprint. Well, as I start to run up to the door, I get to the door. I open the door. I have my gun down at the ground, one hand on the door. He was actually waiting right behind the wall, probably about as far away from me as you. He's only about 4 or 5 feet from me. Damn. And then as he gets into what's called a weaver stance, it's a law enforcement or a military stance that we used to all kind of get trained the same way. So I recognize, oh crap, because he's got experience, and he's trained, looking right down, and he boom, he starts shooting. Boom, I get hit in the vest with a couple. Boom, I feel the one that went through my shoulder because it tore my rotator cuff, ruptured my bicep. I felt that one. The next one, boom, goes through my left ear. And so he starts running, and so I fire, boom. I think I fire 4 shots. Okay, and then I'm looking around because there's glass shattered. I don't know if anybody else is injured, so I'm checking. Hey, everybody okay? Anybody else hit? And literally everybody's down, so I tell them, hit the button, hit the alarm button. When they call you back, let them know who I am. You know my name. What's my name? Gene? Yeah, yes. Tell them, Gene, my badge is 5112. Tell them who I am. I'm in pursuit of a bank robbery suspect. That literally takes like 30 seconds. And then it's amazing how your training kind of kicks in, because I remember at the academy, they always said, if you're chasing someone who had a gun, don't just run after them aimlessly or blindly, because oftentimes they're trying to wait an ambush. So as I pop my head out the door, he's literally waiting down on the end of the building. And as I just pop my head out, he boom, 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 fires like 4 shots at my head. He misses. I lean down, boom, I fire at least 1 more shot. He takes off. I take off running after him. And then he pivots around and sees me running after him. He starts firing again. So I dive behind a car. That car is a 1972 Honda Civic, which is literally, I looked around and I was like, I am behind the smallest car.
You're as tall as that car is long.
Literally. And I remember there was nowhere to go, because you know how those Honda Civics, there was literally nowhere to go. And I was like, and I just couldn't feel secure. And I look at him, he's behind an SUV. And now we are literally about 52 feet away from each other. And I have my 6-shooter because at that time we didn't carry semi-autos. We were only authorized to carry revolvers. And I look at him and he's got this 9mm that I know has 14 rounds and the magazine and an extra, and one in the chamber if he's fully loaded. And so he ends up looking around, and I'm looking at him. He's kind of looking at me, and a crowd starts to form behind him because they thought we were filming a movie.
Oh,
so, and they're literally probably 7-8 feet behind him, and they're all doing this, waving their arms like, hey, because they think there's cameras somewhere.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I just recall seeing him. I see him doing this, patting around, and I know he's looking for an extra magazine.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, crap. And then I can see him pull one out. He pops the old one out, pops the new one in, sticks it in his pocket. He looks around and checks his rear again. Okay, crowd's still back there. He knows I'm not going to shoot because all those people, probably 10 people or so, are right behind him. And so I just go, crap, I'm trying to get as small as I can and trying to get some metal, as much metal as I can in between us. And he just starts firing, boom, 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 glass shattering. So I get hit in the neck and in the jaw. Oh. And the worst part was the glass. It literally, as it shattered, it was inside of my eyelids. And so I could literally barely see. And I'm temporarily blinded. But, push on. And he gets up and he starts running. And there's at least one guy who's a kid, who's like a 21-year-old kid. He recognized that, this was not a movie. Yeah. And so he jumps out in front of the guy and jumps out like he's going to try and tackle him. And I could see the bank robber, the bad guy, put the gun literally right to his forehead and point. But he doesn't shoot. Literally, he just smacks him right on the forehead with it. Yeah. And just keeps running. Yes. And so I was so glad. So then he's running that way. I start running behind him. There's actually a telephone worker who's on a utility pole. And he says, hey, he's coming around the other way, because he could see everything. Yeah. So he thought, wow, the guy's coming around behind me trying to ambush me. And what he was trying to do in all actuality is he had parked his vehicle there. Oh. That's why when he left the bank, remember I said he started to run to the left. He was going to try to run to his car, but he probably figured I was too close. He wasn't going to outrun me because he had to run up some stairs. Yeah. So he just decided to go that way. So I stopped running after him, went around back through the parking lot to try to head him off. I look, I don't see him. I look, oh, crap. He probably got away. He probably got into a car. So as I start to run up the stairs, all of a sudden, I just get a feeling like, hey, turn around. Because my back was kind of to the area of the road where he had run to. And as I turned around, literally, he starts running down the street. Boom, 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 boom. And he's shooting at my back. Wow. And he's firing rounds. So I dive back down into the parking lot. And I'm just kind of waiting. I got my gun pointed. I'm hoping, I pretty much know I got at least one round left. And I'm waiting. Please pop your head up, try to finish me off. Mm-hmm. And then I'm waiting, nothing. And then all of a sudden I can hear a car start and I hear boom, 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 ramming. He had hopped in his car and he was in such a hurry to get out. He's just ramming cars, trying to get out. And so I hop up, get up, and I run. I fire my last round. Boom. It fires through the driver's side windshield. And I can see the hole in there, but I don't know if I hit him or anything. He drives off, and I chase him, and I run down the street, and I follow him down probably about a couple blocks. And then, because I remember when I fired, boom, last round, click, 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 no other bullets. And so now I'm like, crap, after I run down after a couple of blocks, and he's gone. And I'm thinking, crap. Now, is anybody hurt in the bank?
Yeah.
Because I don't even know. So now I'm sprinting back to the bank.
And meanwhile, you've been shot.
I've been shot, yeah. And I didn't get back to the bank.
Glass in your eyes.
And it looks really bad because all the shards of glass have hit my face and my ear and my neck and my jaw are bleeding from the bullet wounds and the shoulder. And so I literally look like, I probably look like I was dying as I walk into the bank and I see this glass all over the floor, and I don't see anybody. And for me, that was probably the worst time because I didn't know if anybody else had been injured, if the bank robber had an accomplice, and they came in because I was gone for a couple of blocks. So I ended up literally just, all right, hey, is anybody here? Anybody here? And I look over, and it's like I see a head pop up, and it's the president / manager. It's Sue, my friend who I worked there for initially, and she pops up and she's on the phone, and I said, "Are you talking to the police?" And she, yeah, okay, is that the police? Yes. And I said, okay, let me have the phone. And so I get on the phone, and the dispatcher is on the phone, and I said, hey, I gave him my name. Look, badge 5112. I'm in pursuit of a bank robbery suspect. I'm okay. I've been hit. He's like, have you been shot? Yeah, I've been shot, but let me give you the license plate number of this car before I forget it. And he's like, okay, just calm down. Let me give you the license plate number. And he's just saying, stay with me, calm down. And I said, shut the fuck up. Take this license plate number before I forget it. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay. And I give him the license plate number. Okay, lock all the doors. Nobody leaves. Nobody comes in. Is there anybody else hit? No, nobody else hit. Okay. So as I look down, I'm at Sue's desk, and she's got all of this paperwork there. And I'm just dripping blood. This blood's just dripping everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, Sue. I was like, can you do me a favor? You have any napkins or paper towels?
Right.
And she's like, what? Do you have a napkin or paper? I'm sorry. And she takes like 2 or 3 steps, and then boom, she faints.
Oh no!
God.
And so I'm like, hang on a second. I hear the dispatcher just screaming, "No, are you okay? Stay with me." And I'm like, I'm trying to take care of Sue, and so I kind of getting her, trying to regain consciousness. You okay? Yeah, I'm okay. All right, so let's go in the bathroom. You wash your face, and I go in and I'm looking. I was like, oh crap, he shot my ear off. Oh, the neck and stuff's kind of hanging.
So
in
you're
places.
just now seeing.
Yeah, and I was more pissed about the ear than anything.
Right.
And I was like, oh, my ear.
It was so symmetrical.
Yes, and then the door, I can hear people pounding on the door. It ends up being Seattle police. And, and when they come in, I'm in the bathroom, like, just checking my ear out. And you okay? Yeah, I'm all right. And so they have medics with them, and the medics want to get me out into their truck so they can examine me, take a look at me. And then I get ready to step to the door, and it's like every news station has a van out there.
Yeah.
And I said, hold up, because I'm not stepping out like this. Give me something to put over my head, my face.
Right,
and so somebody finds a jacket or something, because I didn't want anybody seeing my face like that. And I go into the van, and at that point in time, they're trying to check me out. And I remember They ask, have you been hit anywhere else other than the obvious places? I think he grazed me in my shoulder a little bit. And they could look and see just a little bit of fabric torn and probably $50 size circle of blood. No biggie. I was like, yeah, I think he grazed me there. And then they go, okay, need you to take your shirt off, take your pants off. And then I was like, okay. And then they go, no, we're going to cut your shirt. No.
Yeah.
Because we had to pay for those shirts.
Yeah.
And you would get reimbursed, but it was like 6 months later. So I was like,
shit.
the shirt was $78. You're not cutting the shirt. And so they ended up, no, we're going to cut the shirt. No, I can take the shirt off.
Yeah.
And so we do that dance for a couple of minutes before I go, I'm taking this shirt off. I can take it off. And they take it off. And they're doing stuff over there. And they're trying to get an IV in me. And then he said, I'll never forget, one of the medics said, you think he grazed you, huh? I said, yeah. He goes, look at this. And I look over. And there's a hole literally inside of my arm. And there wasn't much blood at all. I was surprised.
And cauterized.
And the medic said, yes, he was so close. He was only 4 or 5 feet away from me. That round was so hot when it was traveling. It pretty much cauterized it as it went in, and it lodged, down in there. It hit my bone, broke my bone, tore my rotator cuff, bicep. And they go, you okay? Yeah. Yeah. I was surprised that I could still move my arm around.
Just pure adrenaline.
And that's what he said. Right? You're in adrenaline. You're in shock. And I go, oh man, I'm not in shock. I was like, I'm pissed. He got away. He drove off.
I didn't catch him.
Yeah, and that's what I was like. Oh, I was so pissed because that's the only thing is you keep going, you keep moving. I've never quit on anything. Yeah, and I don't have to win. But I detest losing. I hate to lose. It just leaves that taste, that unfinished business, that taste in your mouth is this bitter, horrible. So I was just pissed that he drove off and I didn't catch him.
Yeah. Did they end up catching him?
Yes. He had probably about an hour later. I'd given him a pretty good description of the car. Yeah. He did some other things which I don't want to divulge because I don't want other guys to to take that, but he did some things to let's say to modify some things on the car. Okay. And so, but I'd give him a good enough description. Well, this is February, and what's the weather like in February? It's pouring down rain. Yeah. And I knew that I had shot the windshield, so it's either going to be completely gone or it's going to have a hole in there. Yeah. Well, he had knocked the entire glass out because of the hole in there. Yeah. And he gets on the freeway, and right in front of pretty much a brand new trooper. The kid had not been out of the academy for more than a year. Wow. But he sees a vehicle matching this description. It's a Ford Tempo. And I said, it's a newer one. And I was pretty sure that I had hit the windshield. So as this car gets on in front of him, he sees the car, no windshield no window in the driver's side window. And I never saw the bank robber because he had a ski mask over his face and a hoodie over his head. I never saw him. I can only see because the ski mask was here and his mouth. I could tell he was a white male. Mm-hmm. I had no idea how old he was. I said, maybe about 27, 28. He was 44. So he's a lot older, and he looked every bit of 44. Yeah. And so what he sees is a white male, older, wearing a fedora and a sport coat. Yeah. not the Gore-Tex coat.
He got all dappered up.
He did. And so he still calls it out, and he turns his lights on, and the car does not stop. He doesn't take off at a high rate of speed. He's going like 50 miles an hour in a 55. Yeah. And then he gets off at one of the exits in downtown Seattle, and he used to work at a car dealership there. So he pulls into the kind of basement / employee entrance, service entrance of this garage, and he punches the code in because they had not changed the code. So he pulls in, and he stops his car inside there so the trooper can't pull his car in behind him. Door comes down. Now he's thinking, okay, I'll make my great escape. Kind of luck being with everybody. There was a tire truck that was making the delivery and was blocking the exit.
Nice.
So now, crap, by that time, Seattle police are arriving on the outside. They don't know what the guy looks like. They only know from, the description of the trooper. So, okay, vaguely, this is what he looks like. And so at some point in time, the suspect is in there. And this guy's really ballsy. So as officers are searching for him, he actually walks right up to them and says, "Hey, officers, what's going on here? Is there something I need to worry about?" And they go, and cops being cops, "No, I'm nothing to worry about. Go ahead, get out of here." And they kind of shoo him along, and he's going to go along. And he's not necessarily going to leave the building at this time, but he's at least, go out of here, get away.
Yeah.
And so one of the officers kind of looks at him as he's walking away and notices on this sport coat he has on, because he's carrying a briefcase also.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bulge under the back like there would be a gun. And so they come up to him, "Hey, excuse me, sir." Boom. He starts to resist. Struggle ensues. And they discover he's got a bulletproof vest. He's got a full gun belt on. And he's got 4 extra magazine pouches, complete with magazines. He's got the gun, a 9mm. He has a 15-inch survival knife strapped to his wrist, and he has some throwing darts or daggers attached to his vest.
Wow.
And he was a former Green Beret.
He was ready to kill.
Yeah,
Well, obviously he was shooting to kill you.
Yeah, and it worked. The end of the story worked out fine. He was convicted of not of first-degree attempted murder, because they didn't think the jury would buy into that. So he was found guilty of first-degree attempted robbery and second-degree attempted murder on my behalf. And so he was sentenced to 25 years and an exceptional sentence, and he had to serve at least, he got 30 years and he had to serve at least 25 years.
Oh, okay.
Now, the end of this story is he goes to prison. He's in a couple of different prisons. Final prison he's in, he's done 23 and a half years. So he's got 16 months left. He has some medical issue where he has to be taken out and taken, into local hospital.
Yeah.
And so a couple of detention officers, corrections officers, take him there. Once he's in the hospital, at some point in time, he tries to escape. And the corrections was 16 months
so
left.
Foolish.
And they shoot him and kill him. He's dead. He's done 23 plus years, and he could not do the final 16 months.
Wow. And he was shot and killed by a cop.
Shot and killed, yes. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
He attempted to kill a cop. So
He's a violent person.
that tells me he was not reformed.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
Not at all.
him getting out at 25 years, what?
What's he going to do?
And not only getting out,
Yeah.
he would have been on the run.
See, and that's it. What kind of lifestyle? I mean, and
Yeah.
he's only going to go back to probably what he knows. You know,
Right,
he's
right.
not
If he's trying to get away,
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
a
Jeez.
fraction of, wow, that is insane.
And he was a former bank employee. He used to work at banks, so he knew how they
the
operated.
Wow.
And even just very calculated. He just got greedy.
Yeah.
Over the course of his 30 bank robberies, including my bank robbery, the FBI was able to track it. He'd gotten more than $220,000. Over a 3-month period. It just wasn't enough for him.
It wasn't enough. He must have loved the thrill of just doing it.
Yes.
So did you ever
I
go back and
if he was a former Green Beret, then I'm sure he was after that.
The thrill seeker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever go back as security at a bank again?
Oh man, what are the chances of that?
I used to tell
30
people.
banks in that many states.
I do all
And
my
then-
banking online.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah. So that, and exactly, it was just, it was his time. He got so comfortable with it. And really, that's what it was. And plus, he was accustomed to it. And he wasn't your typical bank robber. He didn't have, most bank robbers, they have drug issues, you know, and they're trying to feed a drug habit.
Yeah.
And this guy wasn't. He was a high roller. So he'd go and he'd rob a bank. He would come into town. He'd stay at a Motel 6. He'd rob a bank. And then he'd stay at the Fairmont, the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
And at a 5-star hotel. And it's drinks for everybody.
Yeah.
And they were even able to track that he met a woman in one of the bars, and he actually purchased a $10,000 necklace for her. Wow. The FBI was able to track that, and get the necklace back. And
wow,
it's just amazing that you know, all the intel that you know, and like I said, with him, it was very interesting because the military, they weren't really giving up a whole lot of information on him, only that he had been. Enlisted in the military at some point in time. Yeah. And that was it.
That was it. Wow.
Had anybody been injured previously to the incident with you?
Because he would come in. Like I said, he was a takeover person. So most bank robbers, they go in, hey, hand a slip a note to a teller, give me all your money. And what are tellers taught? The customer service representative, they're taught, look, it's not your money, just give it up. Yeah. This guy, he wanted to come in, and it was all about power and control. Yeah. So it's gun in the mouth or the forehead of a female, and he would make sure everybody saw that. And then, as I said, and by the way, he had not a walkie-talkie, but he had a scanner, police scanner. So he would say, "I have a scanner. If you call the police, I'm going to hear it. If you do, I'll kill you." Yeah. And so that would buy him extra time. He would always say, I want 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it was. And because he had that scanner, he would know if somebody hit the button, he would say, they're going to audibilize it. They have to say it. And then I'll start shooting and kill people. So he always had that. It was, and it worked in 29 of the 30.
Yep. So did you see him in court?
Yes, I did. And what was interesting, he never spoke. So that was always the interesting part. His attorney said, I laughed at the argument because his attorney said, I'm sure that the person who shot the officer didn't realize he was an officer. They probably thought he was a security guard.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because that would be okay to shoot a security guard.
Because that person's less of a human than
the other. Yeah, so it ended up, he never said anything. He got sentenced. The greatest temptation is, for the first time, now I'm in court, and there he is. Yeah. But everything is well orchestrated in there, because look, nobody's allowed to carry any weapons in there except for on-duty officers. I wasn't allowed to carry any weapons. I ran through the metal detector. They patted me down and searched me thoroughly because now you got them here
because you were the victim.
Yes, and the temptation is great, because anytime that I was within 10 feet of that guy, I had several officers in between us, and they would have me look the other way. Don't look, just look the other way. Yeah. And if he was coming in or out, or if other than sitting on the stand, like if he was on the stand or his side of the court, I would always be sitting here in between two officers there, and about 4 more officers over there. So there's no way that I was going to get to him. And I wanted to. Yes. Yes. Yeah. If he would have walked
just that close, right?
And just reach out and touch him.
That's all you need.
Because I would have, I'm more of a hands-on sort of person. Yeah. So in all of my time, 32 years in law enforcement, I've never used pepper spray, never used a taser, because I'm more of a communicator, and I'm more of a hands-on guy. If I can get my hands on you, then we can have a nice conversation about it.
Right. It may be this hand, it may be this hand. Right. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it ended up working out fine. He's no longer with us, and I'm still here.
Yeah, you are, and we love you. That was a great story. We're gonna come to an end. That was great. That was one of so many stories of. But okay, so tell me, because you are thinking about writing a book, right? Are you gonna do a memoirs?
my wife has convinced me
Yes.
to, and I know I've talked to you about it numerous times. That, I think I have a story to tell, something that may be beneficial to people.
That one story, and it was probably a lot shorter than it could have been.
Yeah.
That's one story of so many stories. Yeah. I think, I truly believe that you should. You should. You would have a fucking amazing fucking story to tell.
I've been blessed in my life. I was blessed to be a part of your family, meet you. I've been blessed to meet you, Mickey. I mean, it's just, I've lived a blessed life, so I want to pass some of that on. I've met some incredible people in my lifetime, and everybody I meet influences me in some way, motivates me to do something. And my goal is, whenever I talk to somebody, I want you to feel better by the time we finish talking than you did when we first started or when we first met. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's all about trying to give back and do something and help in any way I can. Yeah. And if I can do something, if I could write a book, I keep talking about it, and I think this may finally be the time where I want to put the words down and get it all out.
I think you should, man. I really do. For those of you who don't know, which is everybody who's watching this, how old are you?
I'm 63.
63. Yeah. Look how fucking majestic he looks. Look at that. Shot 6 times.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I had valley fever. It's a disease that's mostly associated with the Southwest. I almost died from that. I was in the hospital a hell of a lot of months. I played in the charity football game. My 12th year of playing, opening kickoff, I destroyed my leg. Compound fracture, fibula, tibia, right through the skin. Ugh. End up with a blood clot the size of a baseball in there. Wow. And, it was just to endure that. If you can imagine, bones, my bones especially, are pretty dense. Mm-hmm. Fibula and tibia, snap, crackle, pop.
Breaking through the skin.
From kicking a football?
Well, I got tackled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You're like, geez. That's a hell of a football. What was it made out of? Was it made of marble stone?
I was like, I don't know. Your bones are as dense as you think they are.
Glued to the ground.
Yeah, they're pretty soft. They're pretty brittle. But, that and getting shot, I've been stabbed, it's just...
You lost a finger.
Oh, lost my last call.
Was it?
That was
the retirement right
there. Here's the irony of that. With all that I've been through, with all the shot and stabbed and breaking the leg and fights and everything, this finger does me in, because it was
his fucking pinky, his little pinky.
It's 6 surgeries in about a 18-month span to try and get it right, and ligaments and tendons and nerves.
Pain.
The nerve damage was really what did me in.
Do you get phantom nerve pain?
I still do, and that was in 2016. 2016.
Now you were chasing a perp, right? And he was scaling a fence and he kicked back.
Yes.
Right? Is that what happened?
As I was pulling him off, and I had to readjust my grip, because I had him by the right arm and the back of his pants, and I thought, well, hell, if he jumps away from me, he's going to be naked, because I'm not letting go of his pants. Right. And I got his belt and his pants, but I went to grab his leg and pull him off, and then as I did, he donkey kicks backwards. Mm-hmm. And pretty much just catches my finger and snap. And as I got up, I could see my fingers kind of pointed. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, I popped it back.
Yeah, hey, good as new.
And then I worked for like another 5 hours. But during that time, my finger's getting bigger and my hand is swelling and it's starting to get a little discolored. And I remember one of my friends who I work with, she was like, dude, shit. Your finger.
Yeah.
I was like, I should probably go in. And then it ends up, with all this damage and numerous surgeries and everything. But the irony is a heart attack. The blood clot in my leg. I was on blood thinners for 2 years. Baseball size blood clot in there, and getting shot and all that. I still come back. The valley fever. I come back from all that, but I can't come back from a pinky injury. And a funny story is to this. I go in and I go to meet with human resources. And so they say, hey, kind of what's the status of your hand? Well, you know what the status is because I had to sign off that you get all the information. You get my medical records, you human resources. You have to sign off on it. So you know that I'm still being treated for this. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to have a surgery in about 2 weeks. Oh, okay, well, we were just asking. And so I remember the human resource person, she says, can't you just shoot with your left hand? And I said, I'll put it as plain as I can. I was like, let me see you brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Mm. If you're primarily right-handed, let me see you brush your teeth with your left hand. I said, let me see you write your name. Now, wipe your ass with your left hand. Yeah. It's a challenge. Yeah. It is. And I was like, here's the thing. It's not as, she goes, but don't you guys practice? Yeah. I said, we practice from about 7 yards. And I said, by the time I stretch my arm out, the target's only about 3 yards away from me because that's as far as they will guarantee us. And I said, that's in a controlled environment. Yeah. Right. And we are not drawing from the holster. We are shooting from what's called the low ready. So my gun is already out. It's here. All I have to do is raise up, put my finger on the trigger, point, and shoot from 7 yards away. I said, now, what if I show up on a call where your life or your family's life is in jeopardy and I'm not within that 7 yard radius and I have to shoot? Oh, and by the way, I'm getting, nerve pains and there's ligament damage. And I go, wait, hold on. I know there's a threat and I have to shoot, but I got to wait until this pain subsides. And I said, how comfortable would you feel having to do that? Because I wouldn't feel very comfortable with somebody's life. And I said, God forbid some other officer lose their life because I have to hesitate because I'm getting pains in here. And so we ended up working it out that way. And most of it was on me. I kept trying to have additional surgeries because I wanted to go back to work. Yeah. I wanted to leave on my own terms. And this wasn't my terms. It was like crap, some tweaker ends up smashing my finger. And so it took me a little bit to come to terms with that. Okay, after surgery number 6 and the doctor saying, hey, you can have another surgery, but it's probably not going to guarantee you anything. And whereas it started with my pinky and now it's halfway through my hand, he's talking about severing the nerve up to my wrist and that all the nerve goes all the way up to the elbow. I was like, done. No more. No more. And so everybody was kind of in agreement. Human resources, they had an idea that I realistically wasn't going to be able to do it, but they were giving me every opportunity to do it. And so I finally decided, no, I wasn't going to do it. And retirement's been fantastic.
Good. Now you got plenty of time to write your memoirs.
Yeah, I do think you should write a book. My husband is a Green Beret.
Oh, okay.
Previous, he's not anymore. But I know from like a veteran standpoint, how powerful it is to hear stories from other veterans. Yes. And how much he enjoys them and how much other veterans enjoy them. To just be like, all right, this person's been through what I've been through, right? It's that sense of like knowing that other people have been through it also, and it's empowering. So I think for you as an officer could empower those officers that had to step away like you did. And it could be very empowering to people, even people who aren't in the military or aren't in law enforcement, just to hear those stories of pushing through. Yeah.
And I think you're right. It's a unique sort of fraternity. If you've ever had to, first of all, if you've ever had to pull your gun, if you've fired your gun at somebody, and then if you, God forbid, have been shot and survived that, there was just 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, probably about 10 days ago, a buddy of mine in Scottsdale was shot while they were serving a search warrant looking for somebody in the city of Phoenix, and then a guy ends up firing through a wall and hitting him. And my buddy, I call him, he's like the Hulk. He's a man of steel because it hits his pelvic bone. but he has no internal injuries.
Oh, good.
And he's released from the hospital like 3 days later. Yeah. And he's able to go home. You know, he has a wife and children, small, young children. And so it's just a unique situation where, you know, somebody else. And I reached out and I talked to his wife, and you know, at some point in time, I'll connect with him and we'll have a conversation about it, because we've talked in the past about, you know, my shooting, and I would do that with newer officers at the academy, and because you want people to know it's just because you get shot, it doesn't mean you have to die. It's not like you see on television. I didn't go flying back, you know, 10 feet, and you can be shot. There are tons of people, even tons of bad guys who are shot multiple times, and they, like you said, adrenaline, they keep going.
Yeah. And well, I think that's just one facet of your story. I mean, to me, that's just one little piece of such an interesting overall. Yeah. I mean, just your upbringing in DC. That's. I mean, if you've heard some of those stories, that's for a whole nother podcast. But man, that's
I think
amazing.
that would be super interesting. Also, just to hear about, like, this was real life. This is what people that I have never been exposed to. In those living conditions.
Yeah. And I would love to do it again.
To have more compassion for people. Do you know what I mean? It's just like you getting out of DC and coming to Washington. It's like just seeing...
Culture shock.
Thank you.
Well,
right?
And even I remember, like, my basketball coach, we ate dinner at his house, and it's like, what are we having? He goes, chicken breast. Chickens have breasts? When did chickens get breasts? I know they have wings and backs and gizzards. And when the hell did a chicken get a breast? Because we never ate any parts of the chicken that had meat on them. Yeah. I mean, we would eat chicken feet. Wow. How much meat is on a chicken? Right. There's none.
No,
it's just batter.
Grease on batter.
But just that. And I remember, you know, we would eat, if we ate cereal, it was just Kellogg's Corn Flakes, right? And it was just no sugar, nothing. Yeah. And inevitably, one of my brothers would leave the bag of cereal open. And so then you get it and pour it in a bowl, and roaches everywhere. And you just learn how to deal with that. Tap, tap, tap. Yeah. Keep tapping, the roaches come out. If there are any left in there, they'll drown in the milk. Yeah. Wow. And that was it.
And that was your reality.
We didn't throw spoiled food. I joke with my mother, we'd have bread that was green with mold. I mean, it was more mold than bread, you could see. And at some point in time, my mother, she was a genius. Because if it's moldy bread, what are you going to do with it? Nothing. But if you throw it in the toaster and toast it, then you can scrape it off.
Moldy toast hack. Right.
And so you learn how to cook.
We're laughing, but that's extremely sad. But that's a reality, though.
You know, and my family, we get together and we laugh about it. And it's probably like all of us, right? You know, none of my parents are here, and both sets of my grandparents were gone long before I was born. But everything I do, you know, I want my mother to be proud of. Yeah. You know, we all want our parents. And we got together this Christmas and talked about, you know, would Mama be proud if, you know, where we are? Yeah. You know, some of us have gone on and done some really good things, and some of us have done some things that my mother, you know, like I said, I got 2 nephews that were in prison for murder, brother, a cousin that murdered 4 people in a McDonald's robbery. Wow. And so you grow up around that, and it either makes you harden or callous, or you go,
it makes you or breaks you.
Yes. Right? And I had good role models, because I had people that were doing horrible things, and they were good role models for me, because I didn't want to be anything like them. Yeah. I loved them, but I did not want to be anything like him. Yes. Yeah. And so they're a good example.
That's why having another podcast with you is crucial. B, memoirs. Getting a book. Anyways, we got to call it, because you got a flight.
Exactly.
I love you. Thank you.
I love you too, my brother. Thank you.
Yeah, no,
it's been great. You should do it again.
Absolutely.
Definitely.